SOAR board has been an integral part of the education position. How do you plan to utilize it to make the most out of your term?
Perfect question. I love that question. So, as I mentioned in my speech, well, kind of in my poem, the way that I want to utilize SOAR board is through what it says in its name, student outreach and academic research. First off, I want to talk about academics. We have gone from the academic to education coordinator because education goes beyond the walls of academics. The way that I want to utilize that is because with academics, it's what you learn in the classroom. But what I want to help and teach is about the classroom, how the institute works, and what you can do beyond this institution. Taking that into account, with SOAR board, I want to make sure that we are able to cultivate self, as I put. The reason why I want to cultivate self with SOAR board is because if you look at many students, especially like someone like me, I was on academic probation. I want to make sure that we can all succeed. One way that we can succeed is by taking a step back and reflecting, especially looking in the mirror. When you look in the mirror, who are we? We are considered as Filipino Americans, right? If you look at that table over there, I have 2 master theses, 1 doctoral dissertation, and 1 book. One of the books is a doctoral dissertation. Hold up. The doctoral dissertation is called Negotiating Structures of Higher Education and Bicultural Identity Through the Voices of Filipino American College Students. This is very important because when we go into college, we have different expectations that are put upon us. And sometimes we don't even understand our own cultural values too. And so with SOAR board, I also would like to do collaborations with the cultural pillar because one concept that is usually thrown around in AB Saman is the term utang ng loob. Utang ng loob is also connected with academic validation because you have this debt to do better because you were given a chance to have a better future. Because when we talk about academic validation, we cannot forget about burnout. Burnout is also one leading factor to why many first years go onto academic probation. Aside from focusing on academics, I want to make sure that students are able to understand what other pathways they have in the future. It's not on my table, but it's underneath in my tote bag. I have my IT certification guidebook. I want to make sure that students and members are able to explore and have self-discovery to find out what pathways are for them. Because let's be honest, I'm changing my major right now. I'm going from computer engineering into information systems. It was not an easy choice, especially being Filipino, especially being Asian, going against what your parents wanted, especially when it has that certain title, such as engineer, or you might go into something where it's a STEM field too. And so I want to make sure that students are able to make their own decisions, thus self-definition. That self-definition can be done through SOAR board by giving them culturally rooted tools such as Philippine psychology, such as the different examples that Jess has given me. Just like today, he even gave me a pamphlet, or gave me a packet called Psikolohayang Pilipino, Philippine psychology. This has helped me grow throughout my entire experience. Next question.
Education is an extremely wide topic, and an academic year is not long enough to cover everything under that umbrella. How will you decide what education should be given to our general body and what is okay to forego?
Good question. I really like that one. Yeah. Well, with my experience being on e-board, it's always the issue of what are we going to put out there? But the question is, what do members need or what do they want? So since education is a very broad topic, my first decision or my first step would be to ask what do they need. By asking them what do they need, I can help cater to the different resources that they are going to need and making sure that they have the right connections. Once I'm able to at least get to the point where they got what they need, I'm gonna ask them what do they want. Because when we talk about what do they want, I can talk about the education, but we can still move it back into academics. Because from here, it starts becoming a pipeline of, oh, you go into your major, after you graduate, but what's after you graduate? From there, I wanna make sure that we have a good handoff from starting from before college, during college, and after college. Because that entire process, it's not about the academics. That's the education of how the system works and what you're going to need to be prepared for the world out there. Next question.
All right, your audience question. High school conference is this position's largest event. What are some ideas you have to provide the most value, educational, professional, entertainment, to the students and volunteers who attend?
Can you repeat the last part, please?
Yes. What are some ideas you have to provide the most value, educational, professional, entertainment, to the students and volunteers who attend?
And volunteers. Volunteers is a good part for me. I have attended HSC as a high school senior. I've been in the seats of the students. And for the past 2 years, I've also volunteered for HSC. I volunteered as a facilitator, and last year I volunteered as the security and volunteer committee, so head of security. I was fortunate enough to be able to guide a group of students, not as a facilitator, but just kind of as a kuya, and bring them over to LNL. It was one of my most fun moments of A-Board this entire semester, just having that connection with them. Because quite honestly, it's just a matter of making connections. Making connections, especially connecting it to my position on board. As a PETA liaison, I am considered as a bridge between AB Samahan and the PETA Center and all the other PETA orgs. As education, I want to make sure I build a bridge between us and more high schoolers. By doing that, I believe that we can ask them, what do y'all want? That's my number one thing here, is making sure to understand what do they want, but also what do they need. Because, quite honestly, things are changing out there. We don't always know what the environment is gonna be like. And so I'm making sure that we get the correct scope and just making sure that we're able to find out how can we deal with all these different things. Aside from that, I wanna make sure that volunteers also have a voice, because volunteers are the ones that are working it. They're not just gonna be there sitting off to the side and be like, okay, this workshop is whatever. I also wanna make sure that volunteers have a voice in what's gonna go into HSC. Because if they're there, they're the ones who are experiencing it and have the first-hand experience to tell us, hey, what could we improve on? Because I do know that we have a student or attendee feedback form, which I've looked at. And I've also gotten personal feedback from different high schoolers, especially from Vista Marietta, whose high school attendees I personally took care of and made sure that they were safe. Thank you.